Okay. Let's see. So, we'll start with Yellow Jello Double Jinx. I'll give Jinx a message on Steam if he's online. This versus Yellow Jello. Okay. Double Jinx is here. Fantastic. So, if we look, Yellow Jello has actually had the white pieces every time. This is a bit unbalanced. Double Jinx, meanwhile, reasonably balanced. So he is awake. We can hope. I'm at KFC at the moment. Okay, so Yellow Jello playing Knight f3 first. Very common move. Looking g3, playing the King's Indian attack. He's been studying this pretty recently. I will not be fooled by that minus category. So the most principled move here is this, but you can also play Knight f6. There's some Dutch defense lines with f5. c5 is a move, inviting a Sicilian defense. e6 is definitely a move. Okay, building up this sort of center. So bishop here, knight here. Could always knight g1. Okay, well, I mean, I assume that there's going to be a take back request here. If not, then once again, there's a couple moves that you can play. I'm going to clamp down on the center. I mean, with this, honestly, e5 is not a bad move. Because you can play some sort of... I'm not even sure what the King Sophie and Keto first move is called. Yeah, c5, very principled move. Yellow Jello giving just a move back to him. Knight f6. c6, very reasonable moves. Yellow Jello striking in the center immediately, playing d4, actually quite a good move. Obviously, if takes, then this comes with tempo, but it's not so simple. There's a few moves there. Obviously, taking here is not a great move. You just help black to develop. That's the entire point of this sort of structure. b6, definitely a strange move. Taking here is, I suppose you get into a sort of quite a common position after queen b6, but it's not ideal here. Once again, just take with bishop, and you're much better here. Castles is a move, then bishop b7, castles here also. Black is very happy. They have a big center, plenty of active pieces, and there are some ideas h5, h4. Even taking a crack at the center with e5. But bishop g5, developing a piece. Here h6 is quite reasonable. You cannot play this or it loses the bishop. So trading, probably the most reasonable move. Queen takes, the only move really. You're not going to open up your king. Is this the Queen's Gambit declined counter Gambit Lasker trap? Unfortunately, that is not the case, and you will not be launching an ICBM at your opponent. So knight c3, I'm not such a fan, but it's not a bad move. Knight a5 may be a bit too slow. Better probably knight e or bishop b7. Maybe, yeah, bishop to b7, rook c8 looks more promising. Knight a5, obviously, well, I mean, now it's justified after queen to d2. Black has a very clear move here, knight c4, winning tempo on the queen. Queen has to move to somewhere. There's obviously d3 there, but d3 looking for this diagonal, but it's difficult to say. This queen is doing a very good job. But yeah, queen d3 looks the most promising. Knight takes d5 though. Look at that, danger levels. But it probably doesn't work, right? Oh, it does though. Wow, look at that. Knight takes d5. What a move. So here, obviously, this is attacked, but Jello finds a move. Knight takes d5, attacking the queen back. And if knight takes queen, then knight takes queen with check. So this is not hanging. And after takes, then takes back. And Jello is quite happy in that position. Yeah, knight takes d2, but this is a check. It's the most forcing move. Yellow Jello finding this move very, very good. Yeah, calculation always has to look for checks. Look at that. Double jinx. Giving up that pawn, but there's... This is actually a very good move. Like, a very good move. You can do this, lose knight, trade queens. Double jinx is playing very well here. Wow. I didn't see queen d8. This actually just loses the knight. Knight d4 thoughts. What, here? You lose queen. And how is Jello going to produce counterplay here? This is a move that I didn't see. Wow. I suppose queen d3 is kind of forced because takes take. Oh, but takes doesn't work. How will Yellow Jello disentangle himself here? That pawn turns out to be poison. Queen d3, just lose the knight, and then no knight e5. That doesn't work. d3, knight d4, maybe. Queen c3, reasonable move attacking this weak square, but this is just a free knight. Two different ways. You don't want to take with queen, because something like right here wins the rook in the corner. So taking with the pawn, very reasonable. Here, yellow has to find some way of counterplay. And yeah, knight e5 is a reasonable move, looking to trade here and just alleviate a bit of the central pressure. But he needs to bring the rooks. Here, honestly, bishop b7 isn't a bad move. Yeah, rook e8 is not a bad move. Takes. Let's analyze this game after this. Yeah, the rook dies, but it's not exactly a useful rook. But we'll have to see. Yellow first does what's known as an in-between move, Zwycięży. Attacks the queen. Queen has to move, or bishop has to move to defend it. But if bishop moves to defend it, bishop h3 wins the bishop. Yeah, rook. But then rook e7. Not so clear. I suppose you just take. And you have some long-term prospects. Oh, and actually there's a very... yeah, but that only works after this goes here, and then here, I suppose. Is there that? Takes. No, it doesn't work. Okay. After that, of course, queen takes, and then there's that threat. Right. But it doesn't work once the queen is there. So here, Yeah, I mean, honestly, bishop d7, probably the best move by far. Holy shit, Murph has a BMW? Yeah, bishop d7, probably best move. Takes the rook in the corner. Reasonable move. Obviously can't take this, or else you lose the bishop. So Cello is now up material and is very happy. Let me check when Molnaya's match is. Was it not a free pawn giveaway on e2? Well, if takes, then there's... I suppose, but there's threats. I mean, e2 drops this, for example. Because of this, I suppose you could play this, and then it attacks the rook, and then this is hanging still. Yeah, here, queen c8, queen takes c4. This bishop is still hanging. but again, can't be taken, or else this bishop hangs, and this bishop is arguably, well, more useful in the long run for the defense of the black position when they're down 2 pawns and a rook for a bishop. But 2 bishops means that there's always counterplay, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jinx was able to conjure something up here. He's been studying, and you can force a bishop trade. Yeah, with bishop c6. I guess rook takes makes a lot more sense, but I feel like after bishop back to f3, there's not much to say here. Like, I mean, maybe... Oh, I mean, that works too. And this is 2 rooks and a pawn for a bishop. At this point, what is there here? I mean, the best you can really hope for is Jinx is to make some sort of checkmating attack, but this bishop h3, if the bishop goes back, then it kind of just doesn't work. But then you skewer the queen and the rook, that's something. Now bishop h3 has a bit of poison to it. Stretch. Take a look. Okay, what have I got on hand? I've got a multi-lock interactive. It's got spools. Pick the easiest lock I have. Oh, okay. Okay, I've got some random lock here. It's Liquid 234 maybe? I'll pick that now. Short hook. That's my 1.2mm tensioner. Oh, we'll never know. Oh, it's down on the ground. Yeah, bishop g2, and then, as analysed, bishop g4. Whilst this isn't the easiest lock I have, it's the easiest lock I have on hand. And bishop f3, about as planned. Here, honestly, I would not be averse to a draw as Jinx by playing bishop h3. Yeah, Jinx can play for threefold repetition here. But yeah, this is pretty bad for black. Yeah, threefold doesn't work anymore after the bishop is back to f3 because there's not a mate threatened. It exists on paper, but it's not optimal. I might get my funny tool out. Here we go. 22 and 1 pick. Okay. Bishop b4 with a draw offer. Definitely one of the draw offers of all time. c3, fair move. So making calls for yellow to load the gun doesn't quite work at the moment, but it might in the future. I need to put this into a vice. This is so uncomfortable. I'm making 7 queens. Definitely have 7 queens. The ethics of such a decision are definitely a6. Yeah, a bit of a nothing move. a5. Jinx is trying to produce counterplay, but yeah, he hangs his queen. And this is pretty doomed. This is one of the moves. Queen there was also a move. Here, there's actually takes, and if here, then there's this. Let's see if Jello finds it. No, he plays bishop takes a5. Bishop f3. Probably looking to play bishop g4. Yeah, he hangs at rook, but it's fine. He's well and truly up. Yeah, rook d8. Bishop back. As long as he keeps all of his pieces on dark squares, it would have been fine. But yeah, it's Jinx isn't flagging Jello. And h5. Not entirely unexpected. But again, there's all sorts of moves. Sure that Yellow Jello does not stalemate Jinx. So if he does, then we might be in for something. Is my microphone the wrong microphone? No, it is. Is it the correct one? Interesting. It's just picking up everything for some reason. Okay, a4, queen there, looking for mate in 1. Few ways to avoid it, but it's only prolonging the inevitable. There's king here, which doesn't actually prevent mate in 1. So king here, the only move. Well, that falls into it. This is the well, no, mating up there. I want to analyze this because if we go to the analysis board, I believe, yeah, double Jinx was very, very good here. Ah, he had to find bishop takes f2, winning the queen. Okay. But yeah, double Jinx was completely winning here. And in fact, Yeah, look at his position. He was so strong in this position. Attacks the queen. Here apparently the engine says that losing the knight immediately, there's just no counterplay. Yeah, just trade. And here apparently bishop d7 maintains advantage. Wow. Here I suppose taking was the only move, huh? Yeah, and this you can try for the repetition, but the rook comes out, so. Here you had to find this. And if check here, there's this check, blocks, and this is mate. This is a cool looking mate. Okay, well that was honestly a very strong middle game by Jinx. Unfortunately, it's sort of all went awry when that happened. But Yellow Jello taking a good victory there against Double Jinx. Quite a close game. Okay, at Snowpoint at Nerves. Whenever you boys are ready. We'll see if Murph is home yet. It seems he's still driving. So, let's see about Arbusian Rentai. Arbusian with the white pieces, Rentai with the black pieces. Willie Arby's is here. He was here earlier. If not, then I will be very upset. It's time to see if Arbusian is online on Steam. Last online 9 hours ago, bruh. It's not decided yet. So we'll see about Heidosu versus Train Jumper. I don't get a response from them either. If people no-show for this, then it's going to be just a waiting game, and then if they still don't show, then they FF, because this is going to be 2 days in a row, but they don't show up, and so their opponent wins by default. Is Supernai in this Savagello? Could be, let's see. Let's see him in this server. Oh, Maps is on. Let's go. Oh, he is. He is. Okay. He's just offline. So, yeah, I saw that. Oh, Super Knight can't chat in there. He doesn't have the role. You can give it to him if you have the role, give a role, but... yes, he does. Okay, well, I suppose if you give him the role, it's fine. Murph says that he is ready. So, Murph's with the black pieces, no point with the white pieces. I'm expecting the game link to be there very soon. Here we go. Kit says, Yellow Jello, I like your opening. Is it the Yellow Jello Bong Cloud? Alright, so it's no point starting with d4. There's two ways to respond here, knight f6 and d5. d5, obviously the most principled response. c3 is not the move I was expecting to see from Snowpoint, but it can transpose. Here you can play actually c5 or e5. Knight c6 is a move, I suppose. Snowpoint says fuck in the chess chat. At Murphs. Nice. What does this mean? My mouse double clicked, says Snowpoint. Okay, they gotta take back. And c4, playing the Queen's Gambit here. Probably the most reasonable opening we've seen all tournament, as e6, Murphs plays the Queen's Gambit declined. Knight c3, c6, Murphs is playing the semi-Slav defense. C takes, there is a known pawn structure here after e takes. This is the Carlsbad pawn structure. Here, yeah, e4 is a move, and we've gotten into a sort of strange position for this elo, because this is unexpected. This is seen at quite high levels, and bishop e6 is not. E takes is probably a good move here. E5 also a very strong move here, but bishop e6 is not. Does not look like a good move. Yeah, I would play e5 here. Really clamp down on the center as white, and just be very, very happy. Of course, after e5, there is always threats of c5, the pawn break, but okay. Here, there is actually an interesting idea to play bishop takes instead of pawn takes, and looking to play that. Yeah, so here, yeah, knight c6, potentially better would have been bishop back to d7, but yeah, knight f3. Here, a6 is an interesting idea. Obviously, knight f6 is a move. Yeah, a6, bishop takes knight is almost certainly the best move. Yellow Jello obviously offered a take back and did not have it accepted in his game against Jinx. So here, there's no point thinking, is it worth taking that knight? Is it not? Um, Honestly, I would just take it, but yeah, 1k is generous. Yeah, bishop back is also a move. Obviously, the follow-up here would be b5, because the king is not castling queenside. b5 is a quite a strong move looking to take space on the queenside, preventing any future queen a4 shenanigans. Will Murph see it, or will he play a more principled move like bishop b4, knight f6? Trying to just prepare himself for castles. No! Murphs goes on the offensive with h5. As a matter of fact, Snowpoint should not castle here. Instead, play a waiting move like bishop f4. Or maybe queen b3. That sort of thing, in order to maintain a bit of pressure. Here, I don't like bishop g5 because it kind of just walks into knight f6. Be careful not to play f6 here. That weakens the king's side a bit too much. I wouldn't like it. So knight f6, but Murphs plays f6, and this leaves some light squared weaknesses open. Of course, the a3 to f8 diagonal is now open and ripe for the taking, as well as future. You know, if there is ever the exchange of pawns in middle, the a2 to g8 diagonal is also open. But bishop f4, principled move here. Here actually, Murphs can go all in and play g5 now that he's played f6. It's probably a risky move and probably won't pay in the long run, but it's certainly a move that he can try. Yeah, bishop b4, much more reasonable move, I would say. Pinning that knight to the king. I wouldn't mind seeing a3 here. A3 is a multi-purpose move. Not only does it question the bishop, castles is risky. Castles is risky here because a4, h4. Instead, 97. Not a bad move, obviously developing a pace, maybe looking for knight f5 in the future. Really looking to prepare h4, but h4 is already a threat here, and in fact, again, a3, I don't, despite Murph's king being in the center, I don't actually mind. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, h4 is already fine. Yeah, I don't actually mind the fact that the king is in the center. If the center remains locked, then g5, attacking this bishop can't go anywhere across any of these squares. Definitely can't go here or else it gets trapped with h4. So yeah, a3, again, this is a multi-purpose move. Not only does it question this bishop, which probably will go back to d6, trading off against this bishop, Now b5 comes with less bite, because after bishop b3, there is an escape square on a2 for the bishop to sit in. "34, 36 messages were deleted by the moderator. How could this be?" Okay, bishop takes c3 is a fair move. Removes the attacker from this pawn. But there comes threats, c4. I'm not so certain about castles here. Again, g5 was such a good move. Now h4 doesn't actually work because this rook is no longer there. Here, there's moves like rook c8. But it's not so clear what the follow-up after rook c8 is. Of course, b5, b4 is an idea, but you need to keep the rook on a8 if you play b5, b4. It's difficult. It's a difficult position. b5 played by Mertz. Very strong move there. But I feel like after castles, all of his advantage is gone. And a4, you can take. Or you have this devious move, queen a5, which takes here, takes here. And then if it takes this, there is... What did I see from here? Maybe that doesn't work. That's rough. Queen a5, it takes, then takes back the queen, I suppose. If here... Is there a counter shot? I don't see one. So maybe queen a5 doesn't work. Yeah, it is. Queen a5 played here. Again, if a takes, then queen has to take. Now the only way for Mertz to do it is to voluntarily uncastle and then play knight g6. It's not dead even. I would say that there's definitely play for both sides. White is better, but it's difficult to say. Material-wise, yeah. I suppose so. Yeah, neither player have really held on to an advantage for too long. Neither have really pressed for it. But honestly, as much as I was ragging on f6 earlier, f6 is actually playing a crucial role here in the black position. Look at how these pieces can't come forward. Pawn takes, rook takes. Has to be queen takes. Hmm. Actually, yeah, I think that bishop a4 is better, in fact, than bishop d3. Look at that, attacks his knight. b1 is also a move. When the queen moves, you can look to infiltrate into the 7th rank. At the very least, no point has a draw here with threefold repetition with the queen. Or does he? Queen can always come back. But no point plays queen forward, and that is a risky move. Of course, this pawn is still hanging, but is it poison? Rook here, queen takes, bishop here. Does the queen have any squares? It has a2. But after bishop here, it has a5. The queen is not trapped. The queen always has an escape square here. Wait, no, it doesn't! Because bishop here, the queen can be trapped here! Rook b4! Rook b4, if you take the pawn, the queen is trapped. But queen d3, he doesn't see it. Looks for a queen trade in this position of equality. I mean, of course, knight takes, but pawn takes, and then... But pawns, this pawn is no longer a passer. If trades queens, I think black has all the reasons to try to play for a win. This passed pawn will become something big. And again, this f6 pawn, so strong. Yeah, knight f5, as Yellow Jello said, very good looking move. But a5 as well. Looking to pass the pawn. Bishop to c2, not at all. You just keep pushing. Rooks belong behind passed pawns, and the passed pawn will just push. We'll say here, push. Rook a1, push. Rook a3 is stopped. Sure, you can play that, but there's plenty of time for black to do the same. Well, look at that, 95, jumping into the position. Hangs a knight. No point, hangs a knight, maybe for some wild amount of copium. But as we saw before, Mertz doesn't know how to checkmate. Yeah, bro, Hayden. Mertz is like the second coming of fucking Samuel Rashevsky It's busted. Here, this bishop's hanging. And once that bishop falls, I think it's all done for the white position. Not only is he +5, but these pawns are so isolated. They are free for the taking. And of course, that comes with an attack on this bishop. Again, Murph's 4.5 minutes over. So all he needs to do is take this bishop, push his pawn. He will be completely winning. And in fact, with d takes, this knight can now hop into the game. It's a bit difficult with this pawn here, but yeah, d4 here, d4 if takes, then this knight is going to be a monster in the center of the board. Always the threat of here with check, trying to open up the king some way or another. But again, that all hinges on Murph's finding the bishop and killing it. But Murph's does not. Instead, he plays d4 first. And of course, if takes takes, it's still completely winning. But bishop will come back. And here, as a matter of fact, there is poison still. If takes takes, this pawn pushes, and it pushes, and it pushes. It cannot be stopped. How many more games? Well, this is round 4. We're going to do round 5 today as well, which means that there is another 4 rounds after today. Yeah, Maths has so many ways to win. Takes is away. Pushes away. If he really wants to, he can trade rooks here and push the pawn even. But yeah, he pushes the pawn. By far the most principled way to win this position. Pass pawns are meant to be pushed. And he will very, very quickly find that he is completely winning. C4 though, this is a difficult move to make. I'm not certain that I like it too much. But Snowpoint looking to make his own passed pawn. But the issue is he's going to lose the race. He has to find a move here. Rook A1, stopping this pawn in its tracks, trying his best to get this pawn stopped. It's all about time here for Snowpoint, and he's got very little of it against this pawn. So true, Yellow Jello. But in terms of time, on the chessboard, time is not antiquated by the clocks, but rather the amount of tempi that the opponent has based on, the moves that they can play. So 2 moves is all Snowpoint has to try and stop this pawn. As a matter of fact, he can allow this pawn to promote. He'll trade off a pair of rooks for it, but it does leave Maths in a bit of an awkward position after it. Of course, he's still up a knight, but a pawn and a rook for a rook is still better than nothing. So maybe instead, there's this idea, rook c1, looking to push this, And then after it pushes, there's bishop to b4, bishop to b5 rather, as well as bishop to b4. And then that puts a ton of pressure on the position. In fact, yeah, this looks very, very good. This bishop pair might prove decisive in this endgame for Snowpoint if he can find this. And in fact, bishop b4 works right now. Bishop b4, if knight takes, rook takes. If pawn pushes, then there is... Yes, the quick rook a1, and it stops the pawn in its tracks. And there's just enough time for rook to b2, saving everything. Snowpoint finds rook a1 first. He decides to play in a more classical manner, you know, looking just to stop the pawn. Don't disrespect it, and I think that it's a fine way to play this position. Rook fb8, obviously looking to infiltrate here, but, well, we'll have to see. There's actually a tactic here, where after here, you can sacrifice the rook. Unfortunately, it doesn't work against this, and Snowpoint playing h3 will never be back ranked. But rook b2, look at this! Murphs is playing clinical chess. He's 2 minutes up on Snowpoint. Look at him go. Again, Murphs said that he's played very few games of chess in his life, and yet he is playing this masterfully. At bishop g5, Snowpoint doesn't have much time. Here, there's a lot of moves. I mean, just push the pawn. But Murph's looking to play perhaps a little smarter, reroute this knight. Look at this pilgrimage tech for the knight. It can come all the way to c3. Snowpoint, down so much on time, down so much on position, probably has to play f4, f5, f6. Try to break through, but bishop b1, looking to stop this pawn, does not work. Hangs a pawn here, but also, let's look at this. If you play pawn here, you can't trade down. And, in fact, because at the end of it, there is a fork with the bishop, but also, if rook here, or rather, if rook takes here, then the pawn promotes one way or another. But there is rook c1. And here, again, this idea still works. Bishop takes, you know, still a very, very reasonable move by Murphs. This is 3 minutes to 30 seconds. Snowpoint has to make tangible threats on the position, attack the knight. Here, the knight has a very nice square to live on, which is d3. Look at that, defended by the bishop, cannot be taken, or else this pawn promotes. Instead, Murphs plays back, attacking Snowpoint's bishop instead. If Snowpoint lets this bishop be taken, it's going to be a dead draw. Oh, well, I mean, if you know, this pawn didn't exist and Murphs wasn't up a knight and a pawn, but... Yeah, here Murphs can push the pawn. He loses the pawn, but he forces everything off. He gets everything in the position that he wants. Murphs is playing this masterfully. He's taking a think. He's thinking, what could I play here? In all honesty, routing the knight. Perhaps not there, that hangs a knight. But again, look at this pilgrimage tech for the knight. And not only that, yeah, he'll trade here. He has another pawn to push. Knight d6. Look at Murphs go, but he has to be a bit careful. His position isn't so tenuous, but yeah, knight b5 here. important move for him to find, holding on to this pawn. Or else after here, Snow Point might have a defensive fortress. It's not sure, but he finds knight b5, a2, nail in the coffin. There's either going to be a new queen promoted here, or, well, it might be a new rook. Of course, there is always threats here. Snow Point is making the back rank mate threat. Look at this. These squares are cut off. If this rook ever moves, that's game over. But h6, Snow Point, I don't think he's done his counting right. But rook a6, Murphs also doesn't seem to see it. And in fact, maybe h6 was actually a tenuous move. h6, maybe there was takes the rook instead, but here takes the bishop. Snow Point has nothing, in fact. But this pawn has been stopped for now. Here will Snow Point find the move h4, holding all the pawns together. After takes, there's some moves like rook back here. But Snow Point finds king f2 instead. Perhaps even better, because rook takes is no longer with a check. And this bishop is attacked. There's a few squares for the bishop to go. In fact, bishop h5, look at that. Keeping everything together, but bishop here. h4 Snow Point finds. Here, there's probably pawn takes. But look at this. Murphs is struggling a bit in this endgame against Snow Point. Snow Point, you know, it's not over. And if Snow Point gets to bring his king in, it might be very scary for Murphs, because there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to lose here for Murphs. He's up 2 pieces, but how will he play to win? King f3, king g4 looks so good for Snow Point. But instead he plays h takes, and that might be a step in the wrong direction. Rook takes pawn now, and it's not like the rook which can't stop 2 passed pawns on the 6th rank. But here, maybe this is a bit inaccurate after king f3 and king f4. But instead, Snow Point plays king e1, drops this pawn. And in fact, after this, there's a move, potentially, knight takes. And after takes, you trade down, you lose your knight, but 2 passed pawns against none. That's something to say. Here, there's this move. Look at that. Snow Point desperately trying to make some counterplay. He has to give more checks. But there will be no more checks. He can't... Murphs has to realize that he is going to be safe on h5. But he walks this way. Snow Point blunders into mate in 1 move if Murphs promotes to either a rook or a queen. Will Murphs see it? Will Murphs be scared? Murphs, you've been pushing this pawn the entire time, promotes to a queen, and he wins against Snow Point. Look at that! That was a masterclass. Murphs with the KFC buff. I'd just like to talk about this. 84% accuracy. Let's look at the analysis board. 84% accuracy from Murphs, 78 from Snow Point. Both players playing a very good game there. But Murphs, look at how clinical he held this after the middle of the middle game. After this blunder, 95, Snow Point losing the knight instead of finding rook b6. That was incredible play by Murphs in the middle and end game. Beautifully played. GG. And that is Murphs taking 3 points. Look at that. And in fact, if we see, Murphs has played quite clinical games across the entire tournament. So we'll have to see here as we go into Arbusion versus Rentai. Of course, he could have promoted to a Rook and been even more toxic, but... Okay, we'll see how Arbusion chooses to play this. And Arbusion, of course, there's E4, there's D4, there's C4. We've been seeing a lot of Knight F3 this tournament. Let's see how it goes. Arbusion taking a bit to make the first move there. Murphs with the goated technique there. Yeah, we're seeing E4 by Arbusion. Rentai has studied a bit of the Caro-Kann. And we're seeing Rentai go into it. D4, D5, the main line. D5. We'll see if Arbusion has studied the fantasy variation or if he'll play the exchange or the advance. Yeah, Murphs, that was a very, very good game. So again, the most challenging, E5, the advanced Caro-Kann, but instead Arbusion plays the fantasy variation. Look at that! Rentai is going to have PTSD against Kazuma from this, because the Caro-Kann, such a versatile weapon, and F3, you can't develop a knight, or else E5 threatens to trap it. But G6 first. Look at this Rentai playing in a sort of strange move order. Bishop D3, Bishop G7. This is a bit strange. If Arbusion ever plays E5, this bishop is going to be quite useless. But here... Yeah, this is a known maneuver. Here, if... it does it? No, this is actually the wrong way around for this knight. This knight should go here. This knight is the one that should be looking to go to F5. But that is also stopped by G4. And if the knight goes back, G5. What should the C8 bishop develop to? Normally, in the advance, it goes to F5, and then there's also, tile trap. But here, this bishop has a lot of options. There is actually an idea here. Bishop takes, and then pawn push to A5 develops this bishop onto this diagonal. But Arbusion playing very principled here. Yeah, E6, always a bit risky. You want to get your bishop out before you close the door on it. But E5, this bishop now officially sucks. The only way for Rentai to make a play here is to play this critical Caro-Kann pawn break C5. Splits these pawns. He needs to play it. If Rentai does not play C5, he basically loses. Okay, he's looking to first play knight to F5. But this is very dangerous. There is a lot of poison in this position. He has to play carefully here. And knight f5, look at that. Really challenging this. If bishop takes knight, then pawn takes, and then c5 comes with even more threat because this bishop can come to e6. Yeah, knight g3, not a bad move there. But it's a bit risky because after knight g3, if takes, then h5, h4 becomes a very strong threat. And in fact, Merfs can delay it all, play bishop to d7, queen to b6, long castle, bring two rooks over to the king side, and launch a pawn storm. But g4, look at that. Arbushin is not afraid of pushing pawns in front of his king. He has to be careful, though. Knight here, and then c5 with the knight coming over to c6. Quite dangerous. Look it up, pawn storm, chess. It's when you push your pawns onto a side of the board. Yeah, and Rentai finding this idea, will he find c5 looking to play knight to c6 and breaking open the center, finally activating this bishop? We'll have to see. b3, I think that's going to be the second most useless bishop after this bishop. But c5 is found, and Arbushin has to take here. He cannot let Rentai play c4. Yeah, he takes, and Rentai has to first play this. This is okay. It does attack this bishop, but it allows for things like this check. And also this bishop, as a light squared bishop, it kind of sucks. So it takes here. It's not actually that bad after queen takes. Why are you banning midside? So let's see here. Probably just takes is not a bad idea. Of course, when you're down in space, down in development, trading pieces is not a bad idea. But in fact, yeah, here, after queen takes, there is this, and the base of the pawn chain for white is gone. This is not the move order. This hangs a knight. Of course, there's this, which is also a hanging knight, which attacks the rook. But hey, we'll see. Rentai has to take this knight now. But he plays this instead, and this is not the move to make. There is knight here to e5, to e4. Such a strong move. It is covered by the other knight, sure. Queen c7, maybe. Queen c7 was a move there. Putting pressure. But after bishop takes knight, it's a bit difficult to say. Here, there is a move f5 for Rentai. Let's see if Rentai finds f5. Questioning this knight, if takes, then this rook opens up, and that is very, very scary. But instead, b6, attacking the other bishop. Here, just taking is completely fine for Arbushin. Can't knight go to f6? It can go to f6, but then it gets taken. Bishop b4. Well, I was going to say this walks into a5. h5... I'm not certain I like h5. So obviously there's takes, and then rook to g8. But yeah, look at this, g5. This is why f5 was so important, because it forced a trade here. But knight f5, look at this, he's galloping into the position. And there's all sorts of threats here. There's this, looking to play at this weak square. Ren'Tai's got this threat coming up. Well, you should see it and protect against it. He has to play something like rook f2. Yeah, this looks good, definitely, but there is all sorts of threats ready on the board. And unfortunately, the king, despite, having all of its pawns pushed, 2 pieces aren't going to take out a king, especially not, this and this. Maybe if this square wasn't occupied twice, then yeah, look, it's... Queen d2 is a move, of course, but we're thinking about practical chances that get rid of this. I'm not sure that the queen on d2 is particularly happy. This bishop has its own fair share of issues, and, well, I mean, this diagonal's about to be completely occupied by black. So maybe better even would be queen to e1, looking to reroute the queen over to here. If ever this, then the rook can move. That's nice. Yeah, queen c7 is, yeah, you can lock the door. It's f4, but... Thank you. Yeah, bishop d2, perhaps a more principled move here. Doesn't have to rush with f4. The issue with f4 is that it... So this actually has an interesting idea. After this, takes here, takes this knight, and this square is deoccupied by one more piece. So you can actually let this bishop die, because here, if pawn takes, and rook c8 is very strong. But Ren'Tai preserves his bishops. Fair enough. There is actually now the idea of f6, e5. And Ren'Tai, if he castles short, is actually in not such a bad position. Look at this move. King's got... not there. King's got 2 squares to go. I would probably walk the king over to g7. Honestly. Walking the king to g7 does not look like a bad idea. And in fact, there's a threat here. If the queen can ever get to c6, that threatens mate in 1. And Ren'Tai probably will find that the pilgrimage tech can't play this yet. But yes, he can. The geometry works. Can Ren'Tai just shove the h-pawn? He could. What, rook h4? He could, but that takes a bit of time. Instead, developing the queen probably presents a better opportunity in the long run. Of course, that forces rook f2, and then after rook f2, well, you know, there's all sorts of moves. Yeah, there's looks for breaking in the center here, all sorts of things. But takes there. And I wonder. Yeah, pawn takes is probably. This pawn takes is probably. Oh, it's difficult to say because this then g6 looks kind of scary. So yeah, e takes probably the most reasonable move. But yeah, so it's Albution who's up a piece. When did Albution get up a piece? Ah, here. Yeah, so in fact, Albution would be quite happy to trade pieces here. Maintain the queens, of course, but trade pieces. And look at that. Here, there is a pretty important move here, which is bishop to e3. Rentai just harder? Maybe. Bishop e3 after takes. Takes. Well, I mean, there's a lot of moves, but king here. You can actually afford to lose the rook for that, because once again, you're going to be threatening mate here. Here, bishop c3 is another way to play it. Something makes me feel like it's a little more of a suspect move. Why is that? Probably rook c8. Rook c8 looks quite nice. No, but there was also this. Yeah, it's a bit suspect. So here I just see rook c8, and then, you know, takes. If takes, then we're quite happy. Again, you can try and chase that knight somehow. But queen c7 also looks a bit suspect. Rook e1 kind of looks reasonable. The issue is that if a rook ever comes into here and manages to take the f7 pawn, then every pawn here falls for Rentai. Yeah, it's difficult to see a way to break through here. You're absolutely right. Rook e1 gives up f4, yeah, you're right. So we're seeing this large-scale trade. Threatens mate in 1. It's stoppable a few ways. Arbusian has a few choices. The most reasonable, of course, rook here. Being up a knight, he's in a very good position. So, we'll see. I mean, all he needs to do is trade the queens off the board and he will be so fine. Queen e2 instead. Yeah, there's... Yeah, king g7 is a move, but... it seems suspect. Why does it seem suspect? This queen seems quite loose. Any move with the knight is a discovered check, so you always have to look for ways to exploit that. Of course, because of the 2 square rule of a knight, it will need multiple moves before it can attack this queen, but... well, it's not so simple. This knight is a bit trapped. What would it have? Let's see. Yeah, rook f2. Ah, queen h1. Yes, you're. Does it not also lead to just checkmate here? Ah, but king moves. Right. Yes. Rook f2. Yes, you're right. My bad. A knight takes h5. Look at that double check. The king has to move. That's a double check. Yeah, very sharp indeed. There's this check, but it doesn't seem to produce much. Instead, where does this knight go? I mean, of course you can take here. If rook takes, then knight can move back, I guess. But there's... you could argue that that bishop was doing quite a lot of work there. I'm not so certain that trading it off is a fantastic idea. And this queen is doing double duty. Never move. This queen has to be very careful. If ever rook e8 comes, scary, scary. King g7. Rentai is up so much material, and it's difficult to see how it will be played out here. Here there's... yeah, queen h1. If king here, it's this. Instead there is this played instead, and instead of having the king hunted out and probably mated actually over on g3, we're seeing rook f2. And it's difficult to say how Rentai is going to make through this fortress, because Rentai obviously has queen h1 doesn't get the queen trapped all the way. Oh, no, because there's rook because it's check, and then rook h2 is another check, and then you can look to try and get a mate on one of these squares. At the very least, there's a lot of stuff to do. Pawn a6. Pawn a6 is a move, but it doesn't do anything. You just drop the pawn because this queen always looks at this. Although if you drop that, is there enough time? No, queen comes back and there's enough time. The rook h4 might look for this, might look for this, but this is covered by 2 separate pieces.
Maybe this. Ah, but this is pinned, right? So could always take this pawn. Arbusion up so much material here, has to find moves. Look at that. Counterattacks the queen. Can't take this pawn or you lose your queen. Surprised to not see queen e8. Same, honestly, but it's... This is mate, yeah. Is it forced? Unsure. It's again threatening mate here. It's an interesting idea that... There's this interesting move, queen e5, forces the queens off the board. And Arbusion will be completely winning in that case. He's got two rooks and a knight versus a rook and a bishop. But Arbusion... If we analyze this game, we will see, yeah, Arbusion completely winning. Queen e5 takes the queens off the board, and Arbusion completely winning in a position like this. Throws it all away. There was actually a forced draw line. Yeah, queen h1 does work. Oh shit, that loses. But yeah, this works. And this is apparently a forced draw. But Arbusion doesn't find and blunders into mate in one. What a game! Okay, well, Rentai taking 3 points against Arbusion. Here comes Heidosu Train Jumper. Let's say Heidosu, white pieces, Train Jumper, black pieces. Train Jumper, you've had the black pieces every single game, I'm so sorry. Aiden, meanwhile, has had a reasonable split. Yes, I do want to see TJ pull out 10 consecutive book moves of an opening that he has never studied before as well. That'd be pretty fucking funny. No longer running Caro-Kann, I am mentally scarred. That's fair enough. Instead, you should play a Scandinavian Gambit. Be like Kit and play 10 moves of engine theory into me. In the Danish Gambit. Which no human being on Earth would have reasonably studied. Yeah, that's rough, buddy. Queen d5 would have been completely winning. Fantasy variation. Rentai with the fantasy variation. What will he do? Alright, Hayden, I expect to see d4. Yeah, Arbusion completely winning. Just had to get queens off the board. d4. Train Jumper has a few moves. d5 obviously, knight f6, e6. All fair moves. There's d5. c4, Hayden playing the Queen's Gambit. We'll see if Train Jumper accepts or declines the Gambit. He accepts the Gambit. Knight c3. Hayden playing known theory. Knight f6 is a move. Arguably, knight c6 or even c5 immediately. There's a line there. So here, e4 is the main move. Yep. Taking a full center. There's some moves for black here. There's g6 as b6. Yeah, c5, look at that. Train Jumper knows his theory, despite never studying theory. But once again, proving that theory is for nerds when instead you can create the theory. Obviously, it's looking for to re-gambit the pawn, strike with e5, having a very strong center. That is a move of all time. Let's see. Now, there's some moves here. Yeah, knight c6 immediately attacking this bishop back. What is the move really? There's a lot of lines here. I think knight, bishop takes knight is a move. Yeah, bishop takes knight, and I'm expecting probably g takes. When the next bracket comes out, can you let me play the next two tomorrow? The issue is that I can't see the future with the bracket. Or rather today into tomorrow. If you'd like, yeah. Of course, of course. I mean, the idea is that we're playing the coming bracket as well, because this is all yesterday stuff. So queen trade into pawn takes. And e take, this is an interesting idea. Yeah, there's actually... It doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's two bishops. If there was g takes, there was the idea f4, looking to castle this way. But with e takes, the bishops are going to come alive different ways. But Train Jumper definitely in a very pleasant position. Obviously, the idea is if trades, then he has recovered his pawn structure. If I was Hayden, I would probably move this bishop to here, I suppose. Queenside castles from TJ. Look, if he could, it would be pretty interesting, but he can't castle through check. When this rook is here, the king would move through it. Can't castle through that. Let's see how Hayden plays this. Again, there's bishop b5. I mean, it's equal, so really, taking the bishop wouldn't be so bad for him. How comfortable are you protecting king with only A and B file pawns? Not very. Especially if there's bishops on the board. Not very. Depends on which color you're playing with. If there's a light square or a dark square bishop on the board, I would be quite scared too. Yeah, but Hayden finds bishop b5, declining the trade. It notes that this pawn isn't dropped because of this. There is now the threat to drop that pawn after that, but there is play here. Was rook c8 a move? Probably. Rook c8 is always a move. Yeah, here 92, look at that. Hayden prepares not only castles, but also defends the knight with another knight. Professional sort of move from Hayden. I am in the wrong view. We've been in the wrong view for about 10 minutes. We'll ignore it. Train jumper with castles, keeping the tension everywhere. I would expect Hayden to just castle as well. Although, h4 is an interesting idea. Always, always, always h4 is an interesting idea. Honestly, if he gave this position to like 50 grandmasters, I think that they would all look to just offer a draw here and then just go about their day. Castles. You reckon there are any chess piece one tricks? Lower elo players probably prefer knights to bishops. That answers your question. It's a queen one trick rat fuck. Not wrong. The queen is like the Phlogistinator from TF2. That's what I'm saying, Rentai. But to be fair, at this point, Egypt and we're both flog pyros. Yeah, to be fair, at this point, if you don't prepare something into the Wayward Queen attack against Kit, look, that's rough for you. Rook fd8, fair move. Obviously, you don't want to be the one to take, because that surrenders the file to your opponent. Instead, there's a couple moves, I guess. Again, bishop takes knight is always a move, splitting the pawns. There's actually an interesting idea here, a3. Challenging that bishop, voluntarily splitting your own pawns, but getting it out of the pressure of that light squared bishop. a3, very interesting move. None of them push pawns yet. It is pretty incredible. Pawns are fake as fuck. Thank you, Double Jinx. Very cool.
Okay, knight d5. Interesting idea there. Jumping the knight into the center. Obviously, if bishop takes and there's pawn takes, which attacks knight. Hello, Reaps. Welcome to chess. There's king f8. A move, but I see knight c7. Look at that move. Bishop takes first. Again, knight c7 looks quite good after the pawn split. Instead, Hayden just picks up a knight. Finds that if you miss the defender, then you do win a piece. And Train Jumper is now down the knight. We'll have to see. Is he able to do something here? Because obviously there is a fork threat here. But look, DB8. He has to be very careful. Do not let himself get back ranked. Obviously, having e7 open is a way for him to prevent that preemptively, but